"This isn't a shelter," my sister sneered, tossing her curls as she shut the door. Behind her, my parents chuckled like it was a bad sitcom. I stood there with a melted phone, no shoes, and one truth burning hotter than the fire. I was never family. Just a wallet. The smoke still clung to my hair, acrid and suffocating. My apartment, everything I'd built, everything I owned, reduced to charred memories and insurance paperwork. But standing on my sister's pristine doorstep, listening to that lock click into place, I realized the real fire had been burning for years. I just hadn't noticed because I was too busy feeding it with my own resources. They used to call me selfless. I wore that label like a badge of honor, polishing it with every sacrifice, every check I wrote, every dream I postponed. It started when I was 22. My first real job, my first taste of financial independence. And suddenly, I wasn't just Emma. I was the family's golden goose. Mom's retirement fund had evaporated in the 2008 crash. Dad's small business never recovered. And Sarah? Well, Sarah was the baby, the one with potential, the one who deserved every opportunity. "You're so generous," Mom would say, her eyes bright with relief as I quietly transferred money for her mortgage payment. "We raised you right." I believed her. I believed them all. The sacrifices felt noble at first. My own apartment could wait. Mom needed a new roof. My vacation fund became Sarah's tuition. My emergency savings covered Dad's heart medication when insurance fell short. I lived in a studio apartment while paying for Sarah's 2-bedroom near campus. I drove a 10-year-old Honda, while her lease payments came from my account. But there were moments, sweet moments, that made it all worthwhile. Mom crying with gratitude when I covered her cancer treatment copays. Dad's proud smile when Sarah graduated summa cum laude. Family dinners where they'd toast to our Emma, who makes everything possible. I was the responsible one, the stable one, the one who had it all figured out. "You don't need help," Sarah would laugh whenever I looked tired. "You're like unstoppable, you always land on your feet." They said it so often I started believing it myself. Emma the invincible. Emma who never needed anything from anyone. Even when I mentioned wanting to start my own consulting firm, they'd nod politely before steering the conversation back to Sarah's master's program applications or Mom's book club drama. My dreams were theoretical. Their needs were immediate. For 15 years, I was their safety net, their solution, their miracle worker. I funded birthday parties, holiday gifts, emergency repairs, and everyday luxuries. I calculated once that I'd spent over $300,000 on my family, more than most people make in 5 years. The pattern was so established, so comfortable, that none of us questioned it. Why would we? It worked perfectly. For them. The fire started at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday in October. Faulty wiring in the building's basement, the investigation would later reveal. By the time the smoke alarm jolted me awake, the hallway was already thick with gray clouds. I grabbed my laptop bag and ran. That was it. Everything else, my furniture, my clothes, my photographs, 15 years of careful accumulation, gone. The Red Cross gave me a blanket and a granola bar. The fire chief gave me an incident report number. My insurance company gave me a claims adjuster who spoke in corporate condolences and processing delays. "These things take time," he explained, shuffling through forms, "especially with the extent of the damage. You're looking at 60 to 90 days before any payouts. 60 to 90 days. I had $800 in my checking account. The rest of my monthly income had already gone to Sarah's rent, Mom's credit card payment, and Dad's new prescription plan. Standing in the hotel lobby at 6 a.m., smelling like smoke and wearing a stranger's donated sweatshirt, I called the people who were supposed to love me most. "Oh honey," Mom gasped when I told her. "That's terrible. Are you hurt?" "No, but I need... Thank God you're safe. Your father and I will pray for you." "Mom, I need somewhere to stay while insurance." "Well, you'll figure something out. You always do. You're so resourceful." The line went quiet. I waited for the invitation that never came. I called Sarah next. She was getting ready for class, she said. Very busy. Midterms coming up. "That sucks about your place," she said, and I could hear her applying mascara through the phone. "But you'll bounce back. You always do. You're basically superhuman." "Sarah, I literally have nowhere to sleep tonight. Can't you stay in a hotel? I mean, you make good money. The insurance won't pay out for months. Everything I had was in that apartment." A pause. Then, look, I'd totally help, but my place is like really small, and I have roommates. It would be super awkward. The same apartment I'd been paying for, with roommates whose security deposits I'd covered. Maybe try mom and dad? I drove to their house instead of calling back. My parents lived in the 4-bedroom colonial I'd helped them keep after dad's business folded. The house where my old bedroom had been converted to mom's craft room, then dad's office, then storage for things they didn't need but couldn't bear to throw away. Dad answered the door in his bathrobe. Behind him, I could see mom setting the table for breakfast, the same kitchen table I'd bought them for their anniversary. "Emma, what are you doing here so early?" I explained again. The fire, the displacement, the insurance delays. I watched their faces carefully, looking for the moment when parental instinct would kick in. Instead, I watched them exchange glances. "Honey," Mom said gently, "we just don't have the space." I could sleep on the couch, just until. "It would be too disruptive," Dad interrupted. "Your mother has her routines. Her book club meets here twice a week." "I work from home now," Mom added. "I need my space to be peaceful." They stood in their doorway, blocking my view of the home I'd helped them keep, and gave me the same sympathetic smile they'd give a Girl Scout selling cookies. "You understand," Mom said. "You're so independent, you'll find something." I nodded. What else could I do? "Maybe Sarah could help?" Dad suggested. I drove straight to Sarah's apartment. The apartment in the trendy part of town, with exposed brick and granite countertops. The apartment that cost more per month than my parents' mortgage. She opened the door in silk pajamas, coffee in hand, clearly annoyed at being interrupted during her morning routine. "What's wrong with you?" she asked, taking in my appearance. I explained everything one more time. The fire, the insurance, Mom and Dad saying no. I watched her face, hoping for different results. "Emma," she said, like she was talking to a child, "this isn't a shelter." Behind her, I could hear laughter from the kitchen. Her roommates, the ones whose deposits I'd paid, whose utilities I supplemented when they came up short, were enjoying breakfast. Probably the groceries I'd helped buy. "I'm not asking for charity," I said quietly. "I just need..." "Look, I'm sorry this happened to you, but I can't solve all your problems." She was already closing the door. "You're the responsible one, remember? You'll figure it out." The lock clicked. I stood there for a long moment, processing what had just happened. Then I walked back to my rental car, paid for with a credit card I'd maxed out for the first time in my adult life, and finally understood. I wasn't family, I was a resource. And resources don't need comfort when they break down. They need to get back to working. I didn't scream. I didn't pound on doors or send angry texts. I didn't call them crying or demand explanations. Instead, I did something that would prove far more powerful. I disappeared. Not dramatically. Not with announcements or ultimatums. I simply stopped existing in their financial universe. First, I found a room to rent from a colleague's friend. Temporary, she said, but clean and safe. It had a bed, a desk, and enough space for me to think clearly for the first time in years. Then I sat down with my laptop and began untangling 15 years of financial entanglement. The automatic transfers stopped first. Sarah's rent payment, Mom's credit card, Dad's insurance premium, gone with a few clicks. I canceled the family phone plan that I'd been covering, removed my name from streaming services they used but never paid for, closed the credit card account that Dad used for emergencies that always seemed to involve restaurant meals and weekend trips. Each cancellation felt like removing a thorn I'd grown so accustomed to. I'd forgotten it was there. The hardest part wasn't the money. It was mourning the family I'd thought I had. For weeks, I grieved like they'd died. Because they had, in a way. The loving parents who were just temporarily struggling. The baby sister who would appreciate my sacrifices someday. The grateful family who saw me as more than a bank account. Those people had never existed. I'd created them in my mind, built them up with wishful thinking and selective memory. The real versions had been there all along, entitled, indifferent, secure in the knowledge that I would always be their safety net. But safety nets only work if someone's willing to hold them up. It took exactly 11 days. Sarah called first. Her voice tight with panic. "Emma, there's some mistake with my rent. The payment didn't go through." I let it go to voicemail. Mom called next. Honey, my credit card was declined at the grocery store. Could you check on the payment? There must be some error. Voicemail. Dad's message was confused. Emma, sweetheart, call me back. Something's wrong with the insurance website. It says my account is suspended. I listened to each message exactly once, then deleted them. By the end of the second week, they'd called 17 times between them. I blocked their numbers and changed my email address. But I couldn't block their desperation. Sarah showed up at my office, crying in the lobby. You have to help me, she sobbed to the receptionist. My sister works here. I need to see her. I watched from the conference room window as security gently escorted her out. She looked so young, so lost. For a moment, I almost weakened. Then I remembered her face when she closed the door. The casual cruelty of, this isn't a shelter. The years of taking my support for granted while treating me like an obligation instead of a person. I stayed in the conference room until she was gone. The rumors started after that. Their neighborhood was small, their social circle smaller. People noticed when the family who'd been living comfortably suddenly couldn't afford basic expenses. Didn't Emma used to help them? I heard through mutual acquaintances. Wonder what happened there? She seemed so generous. The speculation was kinder than the truth. Most people assumed some tragic falling out, some dramatic fight that could eventually be resolved. They couldn't imagine the simple, devastating reality. I'd finally learned to say no. 3 months later, they called a peace summit. The email came from Mom's account, subject line, please, we need to talk. Emma, we know you're hurt. We know we made mistakes. Please give us a chance to make this right. We're family. That has to count for something. Can we meet? Just to talk? I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me, the part that had been trained for 37 years to put their needs first, wanted to run to them immediately. But a stronger part, the part that had been growing during these months of silence, was curious. What did desperation look like on people who'd never had to feel it? I agreed to meet at a cafe downtown, neutral territory. I arrived first, choosing a table near the window where I could see them approach. They looked older, thinner. Mom's hair needed touching up, and she was carrying a purse I'd bought her 3 Christmases ago. Dad's shirt was wrinkled and he kept checking his phone nervously. Sarah had dark circles under her eyes and was wearing jeans that had seen better days. For a moment, seeing them diminish like this, I felt a familiar tug of guilt. These were the people who'd raised me, loved me in their imperfect way, needed me. Then Sarah spoke. Finally, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. We've been trying to reach you for months. Not, we missed you. Not, we were worried. We've been trying to reach you. I know, I said simply. Mom reached across the table, her eyes already filling with tears. Honey, we're so sorry. We were in shock about the fire. We didn't handle it well. We were scared, Dad added. We didn't know what to do. Sarah nodded eagerly. It was like a crisis moment. People don't think clearly in crisis moments. I watched them perform their rehearsed apologies, each word carefully chosen to minimize their actions while maximizing my sympathy. They weren't sorry for what they'd done. They were sorry they'd been caught. We want to make it up to you, Mom continued. We can offer you the spare room now. We've cleared it out. The spare room. The storage closet that used to be my childhood bedroom. And I talked to my roommates, Sarah added. If you still need a place, we could probably work something out. Probably. Could. The same conditional love they'd always offered. I let them finish their presentation, because that's what it was, a sales pitch designed to restore their income stream. Then I smiled. I appreciate that, I said, but I'm not displaced anymore. They looked confused. I bought a house, I continued. Last month. It's lovely. 3 bedrooms, ocean view. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. You bought a house? Mom's voice was small. With what money? Sarah demanded, then caught herself. I mean, how did you afford that so fast? I pulled out my phone and showed them pictures. The craftsman bungalow with its wraparound porch. The kitchen with granite counters and stainless appliances. The master bedroom with French doors opening onto a deck that overlooked the bay. It turns out, I said quietly, when you stop supporting 3 other adults, you have quite a bit of disposable income. Dad's face went pale. Emma, you can't be serious. The house is in my name only, I continued, my voice steady and calm. as is the trust fund I've been building instead of paying your expenses. It's amazing how quickly money grows when you invest it in your own future. Sarah's mouth opened and closed like a fish. You can't just abandon your family. I didn't abandon anyone, I replied. I simply stopped allowing myself to be used. Mom started crying then, real tears this time. We love you, Emma. We've always loved you. You love what I provided, I corrected gently. There's a difference. They tried everything after that. Guilt trips about family loyalty, promises to change, threats about me being alone in the world. I listened to it all with the detached interest of an anthropologist studying a foreign culture. When they finally ran out of words, I stood up. I hope you figure things out, I said, and I meant it. I hope you learn to take care of yourselves the way I learned to take care of you. I left them at the table, still arguing among themselves about whose fault this was, whose responsibility it should be to fix it. None of them said goodbye. 6 months later, I was hosting a dinner party in my new home. The dining room glowed with candlelight, filled with people who knew me as more than a source of funds. My business partner, sharing stories about our expanding client base. My neighbor, an artist who painted seascapes and brought homemade bread. A professor from the community college where I'd started volunteering, teaching financial literacy to first-generation college students. Real friends. People who brought as much to my life as they took from it. My phone buzzed during dessert. 69 missed calls from my family's numbers I'd unblocked out of curiosity but never answered. Everything okay? Asked Maya, my business partner. I glanced at the screen, then set the phone aside. Just some old business, I said. Nothing that can't wait. Through the French doors I could see the ocean, dark and vast under the stars. I'd never lived this close to water before. I'd never allowed myself to dream this big. The missed calls continued throughout the evening. Voicemails piled up, each one more desperate than the last. Some crisis, no doubt. Some emergency that required my immediate financial intervention. After my guests left, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my deck, listening to the waves. The air was clean here, free of smoke and desperation. I felt lighter than I had in years. I thought about calling them back, for exactly 30 seconds. Then I deleted the missed calls and blocked their numbers again. Some boundaries, once drawn, should never be crossed again. The next morning, I woke up in my beautiful bedroom, in my beautiful house, to sunlight streaming through windows I'd paid for, with money I'd earned and kept for myself. I made coffee in my kitchen, ate breakfast at my table, and began my day surrounded by things that belonged to me and only me. It was the most selfish thing I'd ever done. It was also the most liberating. 2 years have passed since the fire that burned down my old life and illuminated my new one. I've learned things about myself I never knew when I was busy being indispensable to people who never deserved my devotion. I learned that I'm funny when I'm not exhausted from carrying other people's burdens. I learned that I'm creative when my energy isn't being drained by resentment. I learned that I'm capable of deeper, more authentic relationships when I'm not constantly keeping score of what I give versus what I receive. My business has tripled in size. I've traveled to places I'd only dreamed about when my vacation fund was always being redirected to someone else's emergency. I've started a scholarship program for students from families who actually support their children's dreams. Sometimes I wonder what happened to them. I heard through the grapevine that Sarah had to drop out of graduate school, that Mom and Dad downsized to a smaller place, that they had to learn, finally, to live within their means. I feel sad about that. Not guilty. Sadness is different from guilt. Sadness acknowledges loss without accepting blame. I mourn the family we could have been if they'd ever seen me as a person, instead of a resource. But I don't mourn the family we actually were. Last week, I received a letter forwarded through 3 different addresses. Mom's handwriting, careful and formal. Emma, I know you probably won't read this, but I need you to know that I understand now what we did to you. It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. We took advantage of your kindness and called it love. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know that you deserve better from us. You deserved better from me. I hope you're happy. I hope you're living the life you always should have had. Love, Mom. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. Not because I was saving it, but because I wasn't ready to throw it away either. Maybe someday I'll write back. Maybe someday we'll find a way to be family that doesn't involve my bank account. Maybe they've learned what I learned that night on my sister's doorstep. That love without respect is just exploitation with better marketing, but maybe not. And I finally learned that's okay too, because I discovered something better than being needed by people who don't value me. I discovered being wanted by people who do. Turns out, family isn't about who shares your blood, it's about who shows up when you've lost everything. And when I lost it all, my home, my illusions, my desperate need to be indispensable, I found the most important person I'd been neglecting for 37 years. I found myself. And she's pretty amazing when she's not too busy taking care of everyone else to notice.